A tale of unrestrained desire, the life of the Marquess de Sade. Hello guys, welcome back to this channel. Ready to buckle up? Because we're about to dive into the life of a man whose name became synonymous with the darkest corners of human desire. This isn't just history, it's a scandal sheet from the 18th century, a deep dive into the mind of the original provocateur. Donatien Alphonse François, the Marquess de Sade. Just hearing that name sends shivers down your spine, doesn't it? Born into French aristocracy in 1740, de Sade wasn't just a nobleman. He was a walking, talking scandal, a man whose very existence was so extreme, so utterly transgressive, that he literally gave us the word sadism. Forget polite society. This guy was the ultimate rebel, a philosopher of perversion who spent decades locked away for crimes that would make your jaw drop. From the moment he entered the world, de Sade was destined for notoriety. He was a spoiled, willful child, raised by servants who indulged his every whim, leading to an ever-growing temper. Even his Jesuit schooling involved severe corporal punishment, including flagellation. And here's where it gets chillingly intriguing. That very practice, the whipping, would later become a recurring, explicit motif in his most infamous writings. Was this where the seeds of his dark fascinations were sown? A twisted echo from his own childhood. His tutor, Abbé Jacques-François Amblet, even testified later that de Sade had a passionate temperament which made him eager in the pursuit of pleasure. His adult life. It wasn't just scandalous, it was a full-blown descent into debauchery that shocked even the notoriously loose French aristocracy. Despite marrying the wealthy René Pélagie de Montreuil in 1763, de Sade's reputation as a libertine exploded. He openly, brazenly, carried on a public affair with his own wife's sister, Anne Prosperet. And his frequent engagements with prostitutes weren't just casual encounters. They constantly led to accusations of sexual misconduct, blasphemy, and outright violence. The chief of the Paris Vice Squad even warned brothels about de Sade, considering him a mortal threat to prostitutes. The gossip mills of 18th century France would have been working overtime with tales like these. First, the chilling chambermaid's ordeal in 1768, involving a prostitute named Rose Keller. De Sade lured her to his home with the offer of a job. Imagine the horror when news broke that he had imprisoned her, subjected her to a brutal whipping, cut her with a knife, and, in a detail that still makes you flinch, dripped hot candle wax into her wounds. Though Keller later failed to produce physical evidence, court documents suggest these incisions were made. This wasn't just a dalliance, it was a calculated act of cruelty that hinted at the depths of his depravity. In another incident, with a woman named Jean Testard, de Sade forced her to watch him masturbate into a church chalice, stomp on an ivory crucifix while masturbating with another, and scream blasphemies. He then ordered her to beat him with a cane whip and an iron whip heated by fire, forcing her to stomp on a crucifix and repeat "bastard, I don't give a f*** about you," for 12 hours. Then came the truly terrifying Marseille incident in 1772. This one nearly cost him his head. De Sade allegedly drugged a group of women with Spanish fly, a potent aphrodisiac, pushing one young girl to the very brink of death. He also engaged in sodomy with his male servant, Letou. He narrowly escaped the guillotine, sentenced to death in effigy for unnatural crime and poisoning. After this, his wife, René Pélagie, shockingly became his accomplice, reportedly sharing his pleasures. He even abducted neighborhood boys and girls, leading to complaints from their parents. At his medieval fortress in La Coste, from 1773 to 1777, de Sade continued to arrange orgies, hiring a harem of young girls as sexual slaves. He was also accused of torturing a beggar and poisoning other women. These weren't isolated incidents, they were a pattern. And who was constantly trying to rein him in? None other than his own powerful, utterly exasperated mother-in-law, Madame de Montreuil. She used royal lettres de cachet, arbitrary arrest warrants signed by the king himself, to try and control her scandalous son-in-law, effectively making him a prisoner of his own family's shame. He was a man so out of control, his own family had him locked away. De Sade's hatred for her was legendary. He once wished for Nero's wish, that all women have but one head and that this head belong to the shrew who tyrannizes me, then grant me the pleasure of chopping it off. For years, he evaded the law, breaking out of an Alpine prison, dodging military raids on his home, absconding from the clutches of a police squadron, and even eluding his own public execution. He even made a dramatic horseback escape from the Château de Maylands, an Alpine fortress. De Sade spent a staggering 27 years of his life behind bars, shuttled between infamous dungeons like Vincennes and, most famously, the Bastille. But here's the ultimate paradox. Confinement didn't break him, it forged him. Denied physical freedom, his mind soared into realms of unimaginable depravity, becoming the crucible for his most notorious works. His prison cell wasn't just a place of punishment. It was his perverse sanctuary, where he penned novels, plays, and essays that would shock generations. He even developed migraines, gout, and hemorrhoids so painful he needed a special leather cushion to sit at his desk, and wore mask-like leather goggles due to ruined eyesight. Yet, he wrote furiously, sometimes perceiving secret codes of numerical signals in his monotonous existence. He worked on his most scandalous manuscript from 7 to 10 each evening, as its content was far too scandalous for him to be caught composing it during the day. Despite his harsh imprisonment, his wealth and status afforded him privileges. His mere peasant workers of prison guards were obliged to sleep on the cold stone floor outside his cell each night. His literary masterpieces were not for the faint of heart. They were explicit, philosophical, and utterly forbidden. First, the 120 Days of Sodom, the School of Libertinage, written in the Bastille in 1785. This novel is less a story and more a horrifying, almost clinical encyclopedia of human cruelty, detailing 600 perversions. It describes 4 wealthy degenerates, a duke, a bishop, a judge, and a financier, who gather 32 subordinates, including their young wives, virile men, elderly prostitutes, and 16 boys and girls aged 12 to 15. In Silling Castle, amidst sumptuously furnished apartments, soundproof compartments, and torture chambers buried deep in the earth, they subject their young victims to 120 days of escalating depravity. The first day involves stories tying together priests, pedophilia, and body fluids. As the perversions escalate, the descriptions become a blunt list of horrors: incest, bestiality, coprophilia, necrophilia, starvation, disemboweling, amputation, castration, cannibalism, and infanticide. By the end, the chateau is awash in blood and body parts. Specific acts include buggering a married daughter with a host, and opening a skull, removing the brain, and replacing it with molten lead during sodomy. The manuscript itself was a 40-foot scroll, formed from 33 sheets of paper fastened end to end. Then came Justine, or The Misfortunes of Virtue, from 1787. This is where de Sade truly twisted the knife into conventional morality. The virtuous Justine suffers endless torments and abuses precisely because of her goodness, while her sister Juliet, who embraces vice, thrives and prospers. De Sade's chilling message: in a godless world, virtue is punished, and vice is rewarded. He declared Justine a work capable of corrupting the devil, and his philosophy argued that God is evil. The novel graphically depicts sexual encounters and torments, including impalement. And finally, Philosophy in the Bedroom from 1795. This isn't just a novel, it's a manifesto. Through dialogue, de Sade explicitly lays out his radical philosophy: complete sexual freedom, absolute atheism, and a total rejection of all moral and legal constraints. It's a blueprint for anarchy of the soul, a guide to living without any moral compass whatsoever. The story centers on the education of 15-year-old Virgin Eugénie by the libertine Madame de Saint-Ange, at Eugénie's own father's request. The characters, all bisexual, justify incest, sodomy, adultery, and homosexuality with the mantra "if it feels good, do it." Dolmance, a key character, prefers male partners and only anal intercourse with females. De Sade argues that if a crime, even murder, is committed while seeking pleasure, it cannot be condemned by law. In a truly shocking climax, Eugénie's mother, who tries to rescue her, is beaten and raped by a syphilitic gardener for everyone's amusement, and Eugénie then sews up her mother's vagina and anus to keep the poison inside. De Sade uses graphic sex scenes as intermissions between his philosophical rants, using every taboo sexual device to make the reader squirm. He urges young women to destroy, to spurn all those ridiculous precepts inculcated in you by imbecile parents. These books were so dangerous, so subversive, that even Napoleon Bonaparte himself, years later, personally ordered de Sade's arrest specifically for their authorship, along with Juliet, or vice amply rewarded. Imagine writing something so potent, so threatening to the very fabric of society, that an emperor deems you too dangerous to be free. It wasn't just his actions. It was his ideas that terrified the powerful. De Sade's life ended in confinement, in the Charenton Asylum, in 1814. He continued to write and even staged plays with fellow inmates, despite orders from the Minister of the Interior to prevent him from having pencils, pens, ink, or paper. In his will, he requested that his grave be sprinkled with acorns so that all traces of my grave shall disappear, hoping this reminder of my existence may be wiped from the memory of mankind. Yet, his final resting place was later desecrated, and his skull was taken by a young doctor. His influence, that was just beginning. His name, of course, became immortalized in the term sadism, a direct testament to the graphic and violent nature of his fictional acts. His works were banned for over a century, yet this only fueled their mystique, making them irresistible to rebellious artists like the Surrealists, who hailed him as the freest spirit that has yet existed. André Breton even declared, "Sade is surrealist in sadism." Beyond the sensationalism, de Sade's writings continue to be debated by philosophers, psychologists, and literary critics. Was he merely a madman, or a dark prophet who exposed the inherent cruelty and hypocrisy lurking beneath civilization's veneer? His unflinching exploration of moral nihilism, atheism, and the chilling possibilities of absolute freedom still resonates, forcing us to confront uncomfortable truths about human nature. He argued that pleasure is proportional to the violence of the movement of molecules in the brain, associating extremes of experience with extremes of pleasure, the more horrific, hideous, and nauseating the better. He even extended this to the intellectual pleasure of sadism in accumulating wealth, finding happiness in the comparison of one's own state with that of others, knowing others are not happy. His heroes, like Pain, worship all that cannot be respected and enjoy what is disgusting. From infamous films like Pier Paolo Pasolini's Salo or The 120 Days of Sodom to countless academic studies, the divine Marquess remains a provocative cultural icon. He is a figure who dared to articulate humanity's darkest fantasies, leaving behind a legacy that continues to shock, disturb, and compel us to look into the abyss of desire. What do you think about the Marquess de Sade? Let us know in the comments below. And don't forget to like this video and subscribe for more deep dives into history's most intriguing figures.